Hello, everyone, and welcome to our LinkedIn live session on safety and security and how it links to our ESG strategy here at AP Møller Maersk. I'm Lene Serpa. I'm head of Corporate Sustainability and ESG for Maersk, and I'm joined here today by Tanuj Luthra. Tanuj, would you like to start by giving a little introduction to yourself?
Sure, I can, Lena. Hello, everyone. So I'm Tanuj. As Lena already mentioned, I'm heading up what we call safety and resilience in AP Møller Maersk. Well, very brief introduction. I joined AP Møller Maersk 24 years ago when I was 21 years old. So you can perhaps do the math. I joined as a seafarer, actually, after I finished my marine engineering in Singapore. And I've held many interesting and exciting roles in the company. Bringing me to Denmark on a number of occasions. This present time, I've been here 8 years and 2 years in my current role.
Thanks. So very interesting career and background here at Maersk, and also I think for taking on now this role that you have now of heading up on safety and resilience. So I think that's a good maybe place to start also by talking about safety and security, right? I think you have this background also from understanding the operational context of our work. On safety and security. So in your mind, how does it fit this work under our ESG strategy?
Thanks for that, Lena. I think it starts with our AP Møller Maersk purpose. We recently articulated it. We've sort of always had this, but we recently articulated it. It's improving life for all by integrating the world. And with that comes also some reflections that it is unfortunately still true that around the world we have inequality, and that also goes when it comes to safety and security standards. And also these things hold people back, we believe, from participating in global trade and so on and so forth. And the unfortunate reality is every time a person loses his or her life, it is not just a heavy impact on that individual, but actually on the family and the community and society. And we have this innate sense for taking some responsibility for this. So we want to actually lean in and go beyond what we would traditionally consider as our role as employers, as members of society, and actually take a larger role in this space. So that's why I think it very well fits in with our ESG thoughts and our ESG strategy as such.
Thanks. And if I could also just add, I think also a way that it really fits in is that I think safety and in particular the risk of having impacts on people, right, on the lives and the health of people, is one of our really material risks to people, to society, right, yes, as you're also outlining here. And I think that's also where, from an ESG context, it becomes then one of these really strategic priorities for us to work on.
Exactly.
But it's also something that we know, can be something that we work with commercially, right? I mean, in the sense that it is on the minds of our customers, that we also take responsibility when we are dealing with their cargo also for safety and security. So can you talk a little bit about that? What do we see as expectations from our customers? How are we working with them?
So if I can start with the security elements, and I'll come to the safety bit just in a bit. So our customers normally have very clear expectations on what they expect us to do in terms of securing their cargo throughout the entire supply chain, and that as they should. And they refer to, and so do we, several internationally recognized cargo security standards, which we of course comply with. But we go beyond that. So it's not just about complying with, okay, check mark this and this certifications, but actually going beyond and trying to look at it from the customer's lens and say what's important to them. There's the basic elements of preventing cargo theft and securing the supply chain that way, but also the more difficult part, which is how do we help customers have higher reliability and resilience into their supply chains. So for that, we've actually, we believe, pioneered the concept called business resilience. I think others are also working on it, where we combine the elements of cargo security and also crisis management and business continuity to actually properly secure our customers' supply chains. On the safety element, then a lot of our customers, especially those who are very forward-thinking in terms of their ESG commitments themselves, are actually asking us a lot of questions and are very interested in the whole topic of safety. How do we ensure that people are safe while we are carrying their cargo? And I think this is a very positive thing. It is perhaps not always to the same level as, let's say, we see in the oil and gas industry, but it is actually growing also in terms of containerized transport. That's what we see, and that's what they expect of us.
Thanks. And let me just also remind people here as we're talking, we're going through some of these questions that have come in advance, but you're very welcome to pose questions in the chat, and we'll take them in here, and as far as possible, we'll take them as part of this conversation, and if not, we'll be able hopefully to also respond to them afterwards. All right, but just to follow up also on another question here Tanuj, so is this, as we see this, customers beginning to ask questions for us, is this something that's kind of table stakes? Is it a hygiene issue, or is it something where we can actually maybe differentiate ourselves in the industry with a high performance?
I think there's a baseline, if you can call it like that, a baseline duty of care that all companies must and should and probably already do offer. So there's no differentiation on let's say, the base element of it. I think there's an opportunity to differentiate, because how do we go beyond that? And how do we, on a cultural basis, actually have safety and security, or the importance of same, so intrinsically embedded into the DNA of the company? How do we react, not just react, but actually proactively address risks and create a system that is so resilient, to use that word, that we thrive not only when things are going well, but also when faced with adversity, that the organization, that our employees, our people, our systems are able to adapt to that, and we keep people safe. So I think, yes, there's definitely an opportunity for differentiation, both on the you could say for our customers as well for our employees.
Right. Yeah, that's an important point also and it's important to our employees, I think, right, that we show that we're taking this responsibility and clearly also working to keep them safe.
Exactly, and let's face it, employees have choices. Potential future employees, those out there everywhere. Many people are obviously having a lot of choices who do they want to work for, and we want to be the company that they want to work for, partly because of our approach towards safety and security.
So there's some great questions coming in here, broadly, about what are some of the risks that we actually meet and that we're focusing on. So maybe you can share more concretely on that, and specifically, we have some questions coming in here, for example, from Kim on regarding kidnapping, so ocean security, and a question from Vikram on containers moving on trucks, where most accidents happen. Yeah. So those, I guess, are some examples, but probably also many more.
So I'll try to perhaps answer some of those things that you just posed. So being let's say, global integrator means that we have high exposure to risk in many different parts of the supply chain. That's just the nature of the path that we have chosen. And we have done this for our customers and for society because we actually believe that we can play a part in improving living standards around the world, in giving more opportunities to different places. So that's the why we expose ourselves to this risk, is for our customers and for this reason. Then the types of risks, we are exposed to risks at sea, on land, actually also now in the air. So there's quite a variety of risks. And then geography-wise also, there's a big variation in the type of risks that we face, being a global company. To take some of the examples that are coming in about, for example, ship kidnapping, how are we trying to solve this problem? So actually we have done a lot of work, and teams have done a lot of work in engaging with other bodies, not just companies, but agencies and bodies to address this, including some navies of the world as well. So I think where we are today is in a much better position than a few years ago. I think that's probably a fair comment. But it is not only us; it's an industry problem. It's an industry issue that we need to come together to solve. So rather than, especially for these kind of things, rather than solving them just for ourselves, we try to take a broader view to say how can we help solve it for the industry. I think Vinod. No, I think it's someone else who asked about the trucking. Yeah. I think that's a big area of risk for us, especially as we grow on our landside business. So we are doing a lot of engagement with different transport providers in different parts of the world. There, many times we are limited by what we can do, but that's not stopping us from engaging with these transport providers to see how we can improve the training and education, use automation and technology to make safe driving easier. And trucking on our sites, we are working very hard to separate the person from the machine, so to speak, and create that intrinsic safety in that. So there's a lot of things, and we could keep going on, but hopefully that gives a flavor for some of the risks that we are exposed to. Some we have been working with for many years, let's say on the shipping side of things, and others that are relatively new as we grow more and more on the land side. On the land side, yeah. And I think it's fair to say also that, as you say, it's on the vessel side, on the marine side, we are more, let's say, have a stronger history and tradition. We also have higher control, perhaps, of the environment, whereas on the land side, as you say, we often rely on third parties. Right? Yeah, that's partly fair, but it is not. We should not use it as a cushion at all. No. We have still a lot of improvement opportunities also in the marine side of things, and we need to be open to that and constantly push the envelope and raise the bar. We want things to be safer and safer every day. So not just say that we are there yet. Yeah, good. But as we as we grow, you say, that is what we're looking into. Also, perhaps changing some of our processes and procedures as we are growing more our landside business. Yes. And how do we manage that growth, and also particularly as perhaps we are operating in some countries in the world where there are risks, right? Yeah. Comes to safety and security. So maybe I take the second question first. How do we operate in different countries where there's different risk profiles? So of course there's as we grow, we will see more and more of this. We have a strong commitment to safety and security. So that underlines and underpins whatever we do, wherever we do it. So it does not vary. That commitment, and we have policies and things like that articulate it, but the idea is that we have this commitment. And then we have what we call a base standard level that we apply no matter where in the world we are or what we're talking about. Let me give you an example, right? So again, I'll give you a marine example and then build it to the land side. So in our marine space, in our fleet, we have a standardization on the quality of PPE, personal protective equipment. Yeah. That is not dependent on which flag the ship is. That is not dependent on which nationality people are serving on board the vessels. So there's that standardization. And of course, over time, we take feedback, and where things are not working, we address it and improve it. We are working with our procurement colleagues to work something very, very similar across our entire landside operations. So no easy task, but we are taking it on ourselves to work this through to see how can we standardize something as basic as personal protective equipment. We want to also standardize the specifications for equipment like forklifts and lifting gear, etc. And then we need to say, okay, this is then enough. And these were just few examples, right? And then there needs to be some variation allowed on the specific sites. And to your other question, you talked about growth on landside and third parties. Then, there we are working again with our procurement colleagues to set up what we call a supplier resilience framework, where we want to very clearly specify what our expectations are, and then assure against that as well. Yeah.
There's one question might be good here too, in this context from Hugo, on separating man from machine. How do you incorporate digitization?
It's a fantastic question, Hugo. So we are trialing different ways and ways to do this. Let me give you an example. In many of our terminals, we have actually made our terminal gate-in operations completely automated. So there is still human intervention, but that human being is sitting in an air-conditioned office away from the risk area. And we do as much as possible through automation and other things via camera feed and so on. So digitization, this is one example where it really plays a big role in creating that person-machine separation. And we have other examples of this which we are trying out in warehouses. It's early days because we should be careful not to think that technology will just come and solve everything for us. It is about how do we use the technology to create those separation spaces.
All right. There's a specific question from Amar on whether we are implementing 5G technology. Is that something that...
It's quite a detailed question. Yeah. Offhand, I don't have the answer, but I guess the 5G is more about the connectivity.
Yes.
And connectivity, you know, the more
Internet of Things.
More things that you use it for, then if bandwidth is becoming a bottleneck, then I assume, I'm not the expert, 5G would play a part as well.
We'll follow up on that question then, I think.
Yeah.
I wanted to come back a little bit also to talking about, you know, how do we see potentially other companies within our industries working on safety and security, right? I mean, I think that especially when we look at logistics and, well, actually not just logistics, both on the marine, on the logistics space, there are many companies that have a strong focus, obviously, on safety and security because they are key risks, right, to our business and to people. So what do you see as also we're talking about, you know, how we're addressing some of these issues? How do you see our approach being different?
Yeah, so we have so how do I summarize this, right? How are we different? So we believe a lot in a couple of things. Culture and leadership as starters. What do I mean by that? The culture in our company needs to be one that not just prioritizes this, but actually works proactively to address the risks before they become a serious issue. And that's easier said than done. And that's where the leadership element comes in. Leaders, we believe, need to create the safe spaces. And I don't just mean physical safety. I'm talking about the psychologically safe space for people at the front line to raise up their hand and actually sometimes even challenge them or call them out and contribute ideas and so on and so forth. The other aspect which we believe we do differently over here is that we expect that the accident will happen. It might sound counterintuitive, but it's about how do you design for failure? How do you design for failure, right? Again, example probably works the best. Yeah. So in the car industry, the best car manufacturers, as probably many of you know, design their cars such that they expect every car rolling off the assembly line to be involved in a serious accident. So they design it such that with that expectation in mind so that the occupants are safe. We want to take the same approach to our critical risk areas. Again, an example probably works better. Mooring stations on our ships is a risk area. Mooring operations in the industry is a risk area.
Maybe you can explain what that is.
Okay, so when a ship moves alongside, the ship needs to be tied up to stay alongside. Okay. So mooring operation is to tighten those very big, thick ropes on these big winches, which are motorized. The risk there is that if the rope breaks, it has a huge amount of tension and it can actually fatally injure the seafarers who need to be there to work with it. Of course, we try to figure out barriers to create that distance, but yet there's this risk. So we have retrofitted what we call an innovative design, what we call snap-free mooring lines, of course, working with the relevant manufacturers, so that we expect the mooring line will break, but it will not have a fatal consequence to the operator standing nearby. And the important thing here is to move away from the thinking about only trying to create safety by preventing the serious accident, but actually creating safety by then saying, expect the accident will happen, and then how do we ensure that the fatal consequence does not happen? I hope I.
Yeah, no, that's a good. That's a very good example. Great. Let's see if we have some more. I think there are some questions coming in which actually are really giving us some good inspiration, I think, for future sessions, both more on decarbonization, IMO policy reforms, but and ship recycling for that matter as well. So there's a question on the last one from Abdullah.
Shall I take this one about ship recycling just very briefly, even though, I think it is by Henry, or I'm not sure who is it by, but the question is about ship recycling. How do we ensure the practices are safe with third parties? So in fact, it's very interesting because we've just, we're celebrating our Global Safety Day, and we have several applicants for actually getting the award. One of the finalists actually is exactly on this topic, where we have responsibly recycled a number of ships at two or three, I can't remember, particular yards with no fatalities and no serious injuries. And I think this is a tremendous feat for those who know about ship recycling. Then this is a very dangerous activity. And how we have done that is by full-on engagement. We have a dedicated team working on this, and we have people stationed over there, training, education, insisting on standards, and so on and so forth. So it is not just about putting something out there and looking away. We actually take it on, again, using back to our purpose. We want to improve life for all, not just for those who work within our gates.
Completely agree. Right. So there was also a question about from Abdullah about how we do we study recent accidents to learn from them as well. So how do we?
Yes, absolutely. And Abdullah mentioned the Suez Canal blockage and so on. Yes, we do serious accidents, not just marine accidents, but also on land side. We make sure that we are getting hold of whatever information we can, comparing it to what we do with a very critical look to see where the vulnerabilities are, where the potential improvement opportunities are, and then we obviously take the corrective action on board. An old leader once told me it's easiest to learn from others' mistakes, and we do that as well. So.
Preferably. All right, but actually you were mentioning at one point also the important role of leaders, right, in the safety culture, and I want to also come to that because there's a question on that. So can you talk about what the role is of our leaders in safety and security at Maersk?
First and foremost, we believe our leaders should get out from behind their desks and actually go to the front line regularly. This is an expectation we have of leaders. They should not stay in offices to take the decisions. Of course, they need to be in offices, but they need to go to the front line, and go to the front line not from the perspective of making an inspection and pointing out all the mistakes, but go to the front line with a perspective of learning, actually seeing what the real work is being done, walking a day in the shoes of our front line, so to speak, understanding how are they solving the day-to-day issues that come their way, and understanding what do they need to stay safe and secure. And I think, in our view, our leaders make better decisions when they have this connection. So just to give an example, well, in Maersk we call this leadership Gemba, and already this year we have recorded over 9,000 Gembas across Maersk. But it's not about the number, it's about what do our leaders get out of it. So it's that, and it's about, as I mentioned earlier, about them creating that culture where people, frontline employees everywhere, feel safe to speak up, stop work if needed, speak up to challenge the leader if needed, have a constructive discussion about it, and actually work for improvement.
Great.
And the final role of leaders is to also ensure we have a just culture. To err is human, so our leaders need to and they do accept and understand that. So an honest mistake should not result in a serious disciplinary action of sorts. So having a just culture and making that distinction.
I guess that's also about ensuring that people feel safe to speak up.
Exactly. Exactly. The two things go very hand in hand: psychological safety and physical safety of workplaces.
All right. All right. Well, so looking ahead, and we already talked a little bit. There were some good questions about use of technology, although we didn't go into too many details. But if we do kind of look ahead to what do we see as next big thing in safety and security innovation?
Yeah, I think it's obvious. Automation and technology will play a huge role. Again, we should be careful that it's not seen as a silver bullet, but we still see a huge potential in utilizing automation and technology. Exactly to the point that one of the participants raised in the question and answer session. How do we separate the person from the risk? So where we can use technology, whether it's automation, robotics, digitalization, to do so, that's fantastic. That's probably the first prize. Then the next level, if you can call it like that, is if that is not possible, then how can we use technology? And we're talking about sensors and advanced sensors and so on to actually improve situational awareness for frontline colleagues. And we have several examples of this on being piloted on our ships, but also on landside operations. We are working more and more with this. It is there already in some other industries, for example, construction industry, where, for example, you can have an RFID tag that you can mount on a helmet. When you get within a certain zone of a excavator, it gives an alarm or it shuts off the machine. So that kind of thing. So we use technology in that way, and we are experimenting with this. So it's not at all scaled as yet, but we are experimenting with these things. And then finally, it's the now a little old-fashioned, but actually utilizing our data. So we have a lot of data coming in from different parts of the world, from different sites and so on. How do we use that better? How do we use it to give us insights, to pinpoint where the problem areas are, where the opportunities are?
What kind of data could that be?
Yeah, I mean, so we have a lot of leading indicators that we are experimenting with, where we've done, for example, learning teams for high potential incidents. So how can we analyze high potential incident data first of all, to record the high potential incident, and then to analyze that to see what are the trends, what are the controls that could help.
Great.
So lots of exciting stuff happening, but still, I think a lot of work to do.
Definitely, yeah. And I think also you already mentioned that. This week we have our Global Safety Day, which is this annual day, and you already mentioned there's an award that is going to go to one lucky team. But I think we also have a lot of other activities going on actually across all our sites, right?
Why should we have Global Safety Day once a year? Does that mean safety is only important once a year? Not at all. But it's also important to take the time, take a couple of steps back once a year to address this. And we have a huge engagement within the company across the globe. And it's 3 winners, by the way, not 1 winner.
3.
And that's out of, we pioneered this Global Safety Awards concept this year. We decided to experiment with it. And we were a little bit worried, actually, how many applicants would we get? We got 240 plus applicants of people who are doing fantastic work, sometimes behind the lines, under the radar sometimes. And this is exactly the forum to bring it up. So really happy with that.
Great way to engage our colleagues on this important topic. Great, but what do you think? I think we are sort of running at the end of our time here. Do you want to?
Yeah, we're looking at the clock here, and I think we need to wrap up. We could go on, but I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you to everyone for participating. Thank you to those who contributed questions here as well. I know we didn't get to all of them, but thanks very much for all of you in whatever work that you do, in always remembering that safety and security is affecting people at the end of the day. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.